wide angle camera of some kind. This meeting is being, what? Is that what I want? Yeah, that's what I want. Got it. I've never seen that question before.
Like screw maybe to left, further back.
I think it's okay. I think yeah. Push that. Where are the participants? What happened to Damien? Did I lose Damien?
Feel free to drop in.
Oh, good. We should have left them all out, Carlos. Josie, you must have heard my brain.
Oh, yeah, was it reading?
A couple days ago, my brain was going, where is Josie?
Yes, I would have been more complicated for doing things.
Hello, Lara. Thank you for showing up. Damien was there to keep you company. Hopefully he'll come back. We lost him
Yeah.
somehow.
I thought I was very late, but not too bad.
Carlos, could you turn down the volume? Do you know how to turn down the volume on that thing a little bit?
I think so. Isn't it easier though to be looking at
It would be if I knew how. I don't. It's,
maybe now?
I think it's media one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Media, just a media.
Media. Okay. Very good. So, estamos con un poco retraso, ¿no? Just reading something. Okay. Nobody took advantage of the new light little blankies that I bought.
Maybe people didn't notice that there's.
Yeah, there's just a tiny little stack because they're so thin.
Stars up there.
There's a little stack of them over there. I, for some reason, love having something kind of holding me. I feel held, but in the summer, I don't, want like a blanket. So we have some new faces to me. That's exciting. I am Jim, and this is Saladana, for those of you who are new, just to make sure, who's new, never been here before? Well, just one of you. Okay, well, welcome. This is our Sunday English Sangha that is probably in it's been 5 years we've been doing this. Yeah. We started about 6 months after I arrived in Spain. I've been here. No, that wouldn't make sense. So it's been 6 years. Could it be 6 years? Oh my gosh, 6 years. I've had few relationships as long as I've had with this thing. Anyways, so welcome. And we're going to meditate for about 31 minutes or so. I set it for 30 and it usually always goes over like a minute. And what we've been doing typically is 20 minutes or so of a calming, centering type of practice, samatha, samadhi. And then what I thought we would do for the last 10 minutes is a form of Vipassana. And before we do, I was going to read just a little paragraph from an article in Lion's Roar, a Buddhist publication about Vipassana from a monk. Which Vipassana is the Pali word for how we translate in English as insight. Insight. And in Spanish, it has different translations. I think yesterday, was anybody here yesterday? Jim was. Do you remember what it was? It was, oh, yeah, and Patricia, yeah. Do you remember it was introspection or something, right? the Spanish translation?
Couple insight.
Yeah, for insight or for Vipassana. Anyway, so could be insight. It's seeing things as they really are, seeing things clearly. So I'll just read this short bit from this. So even the title of it is to see yourself exactly as you are. So he writes, and his name is Bhante Gunaparatana, and he's in the Theravada tradition, I believe, ordained in Sri Lanka. Says you can't make radical changes in the pattern of your life until you begin to see yourself exactly as you are now. As soon as you do that, changes will flow naturally. You don't have to force anything, struggle, or obey rules dictated to you by some authority. It is automatic. You just change. The purpose of meditation is personal transformation. The you that goes in one side of the meditation experience is not the same you that comes out the other side. Meditation changes your character by a process of sensitization, by making you deeply aware of your own thoughts, words, and deeds. Your arrogance evaporates, maybe you don't have that, I have that. Your arrogance evaporates and your antagonism dries up. Your mind becomes still and calm, and your life smooths out. I'll read one more paragraph. Meditation sharpens your concentration and your thinking power. Then, piece by piece, your own subconscious motives and mechanics become clear to you. Your intuition sharpens. The precision of your thought increases, and gradually you come to a direct knowledge of things as they really are, without prejudice and without illusion. It's kind of exciting, huh? I mean, maybe some of us are like, I don't want to change. I like myself just as I am. Anyways, that was a little introduction. And are there any questions or comments? Okay. How about from the gallery? I don't know what to call you guys, from the Zoom group. I'm glad Damien's there to keep a lot of company. So for those of you who are new, I usually give a little instruction at the beginning, and then maybe I'll add one or two things in addition until we get to that like 10 minutes. If I start to give more instructions, a little bit long, then you know we have 10 minutes to go, roughly. Yes. Okay, here we go. Mark, get set, go. So important, whether we're sitting or not, to be here, to be present for this moment. It's really all there is. It's just moment after moment. And so what I like to do, and you're free to practice however you like, but I try to get into my body as soon as possible. And oftentimes, in my case, there might be a little anxiety or a little nervousness or something. So I just get into the body, try to feel it, kind of calm the nerves. But at the same time, it grounds me, grounds the mind into the present moment, because the body is always in the present moment. So we could do a little body scan. Maybe starting at the feet. Just notice your feet, any sensation. There should be some sensation at the point of contact where the feet are making contact maybe with the floor, or the zabuton, each other. So all we do is just feel it, notice it, experience it. Working our way up the legs, feeling your legs. Maybe less sensation in the legs than the feet. So then we notice that difference. Moving up to the sit bones, making contact with the cushion or the chair, couch. Maybe the sensation of weight. Moving up the torso, back body, the lumbar, the upper back. Hopefully not too much sensation here, but there could be some tension. Many people hold their stress in the upper back or even in the lower back. Moving to the front body, the belly, the chest. And we're going to the hands, feeling your hands. Should be sensation here, points of contact, maybe a little tingling, temperature. If not, that's okay as well. Into the arms, lower arms, upper arms, the shoulders. Feel your shoulders. Maybe there's a little pulling from the weight of the arms. Maybe they feel heavy. The neck and the head. Feeling your head. Your jaw area, is it tight? Tense? You can give it a wiggle. Maybe open your mouth. Put your mask back if you do that. Face. And maybe try to feel the whole body now at once. Feel the sitting posture. So for the samatha practice that we're going to do, the whole body or any part of it can be your anchor, your object. So when the mind wanders, when you notice that, you can bring back the attention to the body. Feel the whole body. This is especially good technique if you're like me, if you're kind of anxious or nervous or energy in the body. Or you can focus on the breath, which you could do, and pay attention to the sitting body, so the sitting body breathing, or follow the breath, journey through the body, or find a spot that you like, that's comfortable, easy. Watch the breath, feel the breath, the belly, the chest, the nostrils. And if the body or the breath is difficult for you today, you can always use hearing sounds as an anchor. Maybe you might even notice there's a little internal buzzing in the head, interestingly called the nada sound. Not Spanish nada, but whatever, maybe the air conditioning, you can just listen without judging it or making a story up. Makes for a good anchor as well. So we just practice with our anchor, coming back, trying to relax into it, feel it, letting our thoughts drift by, pass by like clouds in the sky, if possible. Being gentle and yet resilient. Keep coming back. Doesn't matter how many times. Keep coming back to your anchor. if you're feeling a little drowsy, a little sleepy, it's often recommended that you focus on a narrow spot, maybe the nostrils. And if that doesn't generate some energy, you can always open your eyes. And worst case, stand up even, so you don't fall asleep. We want to be relaxed, but we don't want to fall asleep. So hopefully the mind is a little calmer, more centered. Maybe the body as well, a little more relaxed. So if you're willing, and you can continue to do the samatha practice if you want. If you'd like to practice form of Vipassana, what I invite you to do is allow whatever is most obvious in your awareness to be your anchor until something else arises that is more obvious. So your attention may go from the breath to a body sensation, to sound, hearing, maybe to another body sensation, to thought. So we're creating a continuity of awareness rather than a single focus. And you can also play with this just with the breath if you want, a little more focused, where you follow the breath wherever it's most obvious, and that may change. Maybe in the nostrils, and then it'll be in the belly, or maybe the whole body. So whatever is your anchor at that moment, your object, you're aware of it, you experience it, you observe it. And when it passes and something else arises, it's more obvious, then you move to that. All the while being aware, cognitive of the changing nature of phenomena. How things come and they go. So, no matter where your attention might be right now or have been, let's return to the body, re-grounding ourselves, reunifying mind, body, and heart. Just dropping in, feeling it. Probably it feels different than half an hour ago. Just noticing those new sensations. And then bringing your attention to your heart center, your chest. Feeling that area around the heart where there's so many nerve endings. Thanking yourself for your practice, the goodness of your practice, being here today, taking time out of your schedule to sit. Mentally thanking the others here in Saladana or on Zoom or on YouTube, thanking them for their practice. And imagining you can radiate out in all directions goodwill. Goodwill for all life. Just being held in that ocean of goodwill, kindness. And then when you hear the sound of the bell, just noticing what arises, any thoughts, any feelings. Nothing to do, just be. Thank you all for practicing with us together today. I know I kind of have, or so my children tell me that I have this personality that when I like something or when something's working for me, I want to share it with everybody. You know, I want everybody to do it, including them, of course. Yeah, that's how I feel about meditation. It's really changed my life. And the more I do it, the more it probably has changed my life. And I just want to share it, you know, and I just love it when people show up like this, on Zoom and practice together. It's so nice. And I really think like if everybody, meditated, an hour a day or more, the world would be different. There'd be so much less conflict, I think. And it's kind of a tragedy. And I hear some of these people that like, yeah, you meditate and then pretty soon you're doing Reiki and then you're believing it. People's views of meditation are quite interesting. So I thought what I'll do is I'll read a little bit more from this article. And if any time, if you want to ask a question, share, say something, just let me know. So this is going a little bit more about Vipassana. Vipassana is a gentle technique, but it is also very, very thorough. It is an ancient and codified system of training your mind, a set of exercises dedicated to the purpose of becoming more and more aware of your own life experience. It is attentive listening, mindful seeing, and careful testing. We learn to smell acutely, to touch fully, and really pay attention to the changes taking place in all these experiences. We learn to listen to our own thoughts without being caught up in them. The object of Vipassana practice is to learn to see the truths of impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and the selflessness of phenomena. So we call these the three characteristics of all conditioned phenomena, right? That they're unsatisfying, dukkha, right? That they're impermanent, anicca, and that they're not self, anatta. And it's funny, I have this friend in the United States who doesn't meditate so much, but he studies a lot and knows a lot. And so we sometimes will get into discussions, right? And then because of COVID, I've been watching a lot of YouTubes. I didn't even know about YouTube much until COVID hit, and about all these videos, you know. And there's one that I highly recommend. It's called Doug's Dharma. I don't know if anybody knows Doug, Doug's Dharma. It's called, I think his webpage is Secular Buddhism. But his YouTube page is called Doug's Dharma. And he's kind of like an historian. He really talks about the history of Buddhism, and he compares it to the Vedas, to the Upanishads, to the Hinduism and stuff. And he does it at least in my perspective, in a kind of a very non-biased way. He just sort of reports. Yeah? And so and my friend is really into, that there's no self. This is like his thing, there's no self. So I watched Doug's Dharma video on non-self. And something came to my mind. So he said, and I agree with this, that the Buddha wasn't like 100% clear that, okay, there's no self. There's no self that lasts from moment to moment or at all. Because even if the concept of karma kind of implies that there's some sort of continuing self that is going to receive the karma of the action, right? And other things where it's mentioned that there are other lifetimes, that there's rebirth and these types of things that kind of suggest, well, maybe he believed that there is this self that lasts. But then he said, well, there is no self that lasts. So it's a little muddled, right? So this is me talking now. This is Jim, because my might call it training, and it wasn't really training, it was more like therapy, came from more of a addiction, codependence, these types of things. And I had quite a bit of study in that before I really got into Buddhism. And one of the things that modern psychologists know that the Buddha taught is that when we cling to something or when we identify with something, chances are we're going to suffer. Right? That letting go, which of course that term letting go didn't even exist at the Buddhist time, but we use it in soltar, dejar ir, or whatever it might be in Spanish, but to let go and to accept is probably the best path to happiness, that we have. It's very simple. So to me, we can wrestle with, is there a self or is there not a self? And, we can meditate and it seems like there really isn't a self. I can't seem to find the self. Where in the heck is it? Is it in my foot? Is it in my head? Is it in my wallet? But then again, this sense of self doesn't ever go away. You can't turn it off to save your life. The only time you could turn it off is when you go into deep sleep, but then you're sleeping, right? So they don't even notice that it's gone. So even in a dream, there's always a sense of self. It never leaves. Have you ever had a dream where you weren't in the dream, observing the dream? Right? So it's kind of confusing. So for me, again, going back to me, my thing is, the key is don't identify. That's really the bottom line about why we will say there isn't a self, is so that we don't identify. Real Madrid, or whatever it might be, right? We have these identifications that cause us to suffer. And they're really forms of clinging, they're forms of craving, which the Buddha had said that is the cause of all suffering. Tanha, craving of becoming. I want to become a Real Madrid fan, or, a meditation teacher or whatever. And all these different types of identification ultimately are unsatisfying. And they're unsatisfying in one big way too. They're impermanent also. This is pretty clear. This we probably all can agree that nothing is constant. Everything is changing. Cerebrally, we can agree with that. And you can also see it. Maybe during your 10 minutes of the meditation, you might have saw how it's like one thing wouldn't stick around for more than 10 seconds, if you're lucky. Maybe 20 if you're concentrated, shit is just going like this. And ultimately, because things are not fixed, even if something's wonderful, eventually it ends. They're all unsatisfying. Dukkha. Right? So we could probably agree on that. And it's really just around this self that's difficult to really get our head around, and to also see, experience. It's like, there is no self. I went to a 28-day retreat. This was three years ago, I think. And I told the teachers, I want to see emptiness. That was like my goal. I want to see emptiness, which is basically empty of self. That's where emptiness kind of arises. In the Mahayana tradition, which isn't so much what we follow here, it's a big part of their tradition that everything's empty. It's basically a dream. It's an illusion, but act as if it's real, just in case, but it's an illusion. And so I tell these people, I want to see emptiness. And they're like, it doesn't happen quite like that. You got to establish the conditions. And if you're lucky, maybe you'll see it. And sure enough, on day 23, so I'd been there 23 days, I had an experience of what I would call emptiness. And it re-scrambled or whatever, my DNA. I mean, it was very profound for me and impactful. And I haven't eaten meat since, which is kind of weird. I haven't wanted to. It's like, woof, where'd that go? And it's the same thing around the not self. It's like maybe you're lucky and you'll have a Vipassana insight experience where it'll be clear, right? But for many of us, for years, it may not be. And so for me, it's kind of like, okay, I'll hold that aside. I get it. There really does feel like a self all the time. I can't seem to get away from it. And I get the fact that, it may not last. When the lights go out in this body, that might be the end of it. Probably is the end of it, if I had to bet. But I do very much understand when I cling, when I want to become, the becoming of anything. Usually that's like again, using Western kind of terms, that's like the ego, right? The ego wants to be something, right? The ego wants to be known, wants to be seen, wants to be accepted, wants to be loved, wants all these things. And as a result of that wanting, generally we suffer. When the ego is driving the car, driving our life, generally we suffer. But the reason for this Vipassana, is to see this stuff clearly, to see it deeply, and maybe to have that experience like that I had around that emptiness, where then you can't deny it, you know? I mean, like I was like looking at it, eyes were shut, but what I was seeing, I just started bawling. I mean, just tears started streaming down my face because I was like, oh my God, this is real. This is not bullshit, you know? It was early in the morning, but I was pretty awake. Let's see what else that Bonte has to say. And by the way, you on Zoom, if you want to say something, you might just say it because your pictures are very small. Okay. So I'm going to read this sentence again. The object of Vipassana practice is to learn to see the truths of impermanence, unsatisfactoriness. Doesn't sound right the way I'm saying it. Unsatisfactory. That sounds better.
Too much O there.
Too many O's. Too many O's. Say it again.
Unsatisfactoriness?
Yeah, that sounds better. Unsatisfactoriness. That sounds much better. Spanish is messing my English up. It's quite tricky. And the selflessness of phenomena. So those three things, selflessness or not self. We think we are doing this already, but that is an illusion, so the Bhante writes. It comes from the fact that we are paying so little attention to the ongoing surge of our own life experiences that we might just as well be asleep. That's kind of harsh, but okay. Vipassana meditation is inherently experiential. Okay, we experience it. It's in the body, not theoretical. In the practice of meditation, you become sensitive to the actual experience of living, to how things actually feel. And this is what we could maybe also think of this a little bit as a downfall, because you do become more sensitive. I mean, I don't know, for those of you who've been practicing a while, whether you've noticed that, but, you know, we're just more sensitive. Which when somebody says something kind of that we don't want them to say or whatever, can be kind of, you know, we wish we weren't sensitive. We wish we had a thick skin, but that isn't what happens. Let's see, where was I? Yeah. You do not sit around developing subtle aesthetic thoughts about living. You live. Vipassana meditation, more than anything else, is learning to live. I'll read one more paragraph. The mind is tricky. Mind is tricky. Thought is an inherently complicated procedure. By that we mean that we become trapped, wrapped up, and stuck in the thought chain, right? Papancha, they call it in Pali. Just one thing connects to another thing, connects to another thing. Pretty soon, you know, you started here, and the next thing you're at the beach, you know, and it's tomorrow. Anyhow, kind of, this writing is a little, can I grow it? No. 15 minutes, okay. One thought leads to another, which leads to another and another, and so on. 15 minutes later, we suddenly wake up and realize we spent that whole time stuck in a daydream or sexual fantasy or a set of worries about our bills or whatever. Right? Just fantasizing away. There is a difference between being aware of a thought and thinking a thought. That difference is very subtle. It is primarily a matter of feeling or texture. A thought you are simply aware of with bare attention. That's the Spanish translation of mindfulness, I think, is bare attention, atención cabo or something like that. With bare attention feels light in texture. There is a sense of distance between that thought and the awareness viewing it, right? That observer. It arises lightly like a bubble, and it passes away without necessarily giving rise to the next thought in that chain. And that, I mean, that is not an easy place to be, but the way I kind of think about it, imagine it, is like I'm kind of pulling back. This is the observador, right? The observer, part of my mind, which seems to always have a sense of self. That doesn't seem to go away, really. It's still kind of like coming from my eyeballs or whatever. But I just kind of pull back and then observe. And that creates a little distance, a little detachment. And then those thoughts, for some reason, just like he said it, it's interesting. They do kind of just seem like they just kind of like a bubble. They kind of come up and then they kind of go. Rather than being kind of, in the thought, or the thoughts got you, and then, you're off connecting one thought after the other. It's kind of that little pullback. That's how I kind of think of it, as sort of, and sometimes I'll even put my attention in my eyes, looking at the back of the eyelids, right? And for some reason, when I do that, so I've sort of drawn my awareness to the eyes, it sort of creates that space between what I'm observing and that observer. Not so much like if I'm feeling, then sometimes I feel like I'm really feeling it. I'm in it. It's one, right? There's no dualism or anything. But if I use the eyes, even with the body, I can kind of get this sense of non-attachment. It's a very seasoned meditation teacher from IMS, Insight Meditation Society, Annie Nugent. She's the one who told me about that as a skill. Let's see, what is our time? Yeah, maybe I'll stop there. Do either of you on Zoom have anything to say, or you want to add anything? No? Cool. Okay. How about amongst you guys? Any comments, questions, preguntas, reflexiones? Can make me talk more. We've got 10, 11 minutes. Let's talk more, I better drink. Another chapter, or not chapter, paragraph. Okay, he says, normal conscious thought is much heavier in texture. It is ponderous, commanding, and compulsive. It sucks you in and grabs control of consciousness. By its very nature, it is obsessional. No, that doesn't sound right. Obsessional. Josie, how do I say that? Obsessional. It's obsessive. Obsessional. Okay. I think obsessive would have worked just as well, right? Its very nature, it is obsessive, and it leads straight to the next thought in the chain, with apparently no gap between them. Deep concentration has the effect of slowing down the thought process and speeding up the awareness viewing it. This is last week, for those of you who were here last week, we were doing some of the, looking at some of the quotes by a very prominent Burmese monk, and his is all about the quality of awareness. This is what we want to focus on, is the quality of our awareness. And if we just focus on the quality of our awareness, all this other stuff takes care of itself. You really don't need to focus on those things. Just focus on the awareness. Speeding up the awareness, viewing it. The result is the enhanced ability to examine the thought process. Concentration is our microscope for viewing subtle internal states. We use the focus of attention to achieve one-pointedness of mind with calm and constantly applied attention. Without a fixed reference point, you get lost, overcome by the ceaseless waves of change flowing around and around within the mind. Right? And it's like that. I don't know about your minds or in your heads, but in mine, I mean, it's just like, just so many things going on, it seems like. And what, what I do, and it's, suggested for a busy mind, is to take a little bit wider of a view. So rather than like if I really were to just try to focus here or here, that will agitate my mind or tire me out. So instead, I go broad, I kind of go bigger, and I allow for more things to be happening in the space of awareness, but just kind of holding it. So if you're a neurotic type like me, this is kind of a good way to go, right? Now, if you're a concentrated type, and there are many people who are, and you can concentrate and want to concentrate, then you can really just pick a spot and rest in that. And I imagine the mind will calm and you won't fall asleep or anything. And for those of us, again, who have kind of a busy, active mind, you can start off broad, but then you just kind of come in smaller as you can and as it feels good, as it feels right. Like yesterday, even though I've got this weird sinus thing, we did mindfulness of the breath. And, I was able to, after 10 minutes or so, I was able to go there, But if I start right off there, sometimes it's a little too much. And this part of our practice is, where is the right spot to rest our awareness? Where does it feel good for you? Where is there, balance and equanimity? Because we don't want to be struggling, we don't want to be fighting with ourselves, and we don't want to fall asleep, so we kind of play with it. Okay, let's see. I think that's.
Jim, can I ask a quick question on that last quote? So,
yes,
from what I heard of the last quote was, hearing echo. The last quote, he seemed to be saying that if you focus on that you need to focus on something specific, because if you focus on the experience and the change, then you get lost. But that seems to me to be part of like what the Vipassana approach is kind of focusing on the change and focusing on the transitoriness of things. And that's kind of, I suppose, for me, that's how I practice most, is by kind of focusing on what's changing in the different sort of sense experiences that I have. So how does that relate to what that last quote is saying, where he seems to be saying, if you are focusing on the change, you can get lost? Does that make sense? Muted.
Yeah, I muted. It seemed to cut out the echo. Yeah, I would say the cognitive part of Vipassana, where we are aware of the impermanence, the changing nature, that really is like in the second plano, right? That's kind of in the background. We don't really need to have it, in the foreground where we're looking really hard, trying to see the changing nature of things. We can still just be with that object, whatever we've chosen or whatever in our awareness at that moment. And at the same time, really, it's kind of just running in the background, but we're noticing how things come and go. And, here's one interesting sort of, this is kind of a modern Western way of doing Vipassana, where we do bring quite a bit more of the cognitive process to Vipassana. If you go way back, a couple 1,500 years, they did Vipassana after they'd already been in jhana for a while. So they are like super concentrated and super deep and super clear. And then they see the change. And then things are moving so slowly. They're like, you can't miss it. I mean, you're just watching it, because there's not these distractions. But beginning probably in the 19th century and especially now, we go ahead and we teach it as if we could have this profound insight, even though we're not that concentrated. And so to do that, we have a little bit of the brain working, reminding yourself, okay, things are coming and going. Even in a Goenka retreat, where they'll be there 10 days, and you're watching, your body scanning and body scanning and body scanning, and you're watching the differences. Even there, in my opinion, there's still quite a bit of mental. Maybe by the 10th day, or some people maybe by the 3rd day, they are pretty focused, and then they could start to see it such that it is experiential. This is probably the most important part. It becomes experiential, where we start to really know at a deep level things are impermanent versus just up in our head. I don't, was that helpful at all, Damien, the way I said that? Or
Yeah, no, that's perfect. That's good. That it's kind of more in the background. The awareness of the changing is more in the background than being the actual focus. Yeah, cool. Thanks.
okay, let's see. Now we probably went beyond our time. So we usually end with a little metta meditation. So if you're willing to find a comfortable posture, this 3-4 minutes. And so with metta, have you done metta before? So with metta, we use phrases, and the intention is to offer up goodwill to ourselves and others. And so I'll say some phrases, and then you guys can repeat them mentally to yourself. The idea here again is to get to a point where it becomes experiential, where you start to really feel the goodwill in the body. And then if you get to that point, then you let go of the phrases. But that could take, days and weeks, whatever. So we'll just start off with the phrases. So we're going to do I, ourself, and then we'll do somebody we care about, and then somebody we're having difficulty with, and then all beings. So again, much like the end of our formal practice, I often put my hands just right on my chest to feel the heart center. Well, may I be happy. May I be happy. May I be well. May I be safe. May I live with ease. So now let's do someone or some being who you really love and cherish, look up to. You have no problems with this being. It could be a pet, could be a loving grandparent, or even a public figure, the Buddha, Christ. Imagine that person in front of you. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you live with ease. And now the difficult person. Somebody who may have hurt your feelings, said something, did something, or didn't do something, or didn't say something, didn't meet up with your expectation. Bring that person, that being to mind. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you live with ease. Finally, all beings in all directions without exceptions. May all beings be happy. May all beings be well. May all beings be safe. May all beings live with ease. Finally, in the tradition of renunciation and sharing, offer up the fruits of our practice today, our Sangha, the teachings, and our Buddha nature. Offer those up to the benefit of all beings. May all beings be happy and peaceful, healthy and strong, safe and protected. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, free from war and violence, discrimination, racism, and coronavirus and all its variants. And may all beings find their path, find their tools, find their view such that it leads to the end of their suffering. May all beings be free. Thank you all very much for coming. Just a couple announcements. One is about Dana, which is part of our name here at Saladana. And Dana is a Pali and Sanskrit word which means giving or generosity. And so we do everything here at Saladana in that spirit. So the teachers offer the teachings from a place of generosity from their heart. And you also can practice generosity. You can make a financial donation in one of the two boxes, which when I'm here, you can just give it to the house, Saladana. But when other teachers are here, hopefully you'll consider their box, because many of those people rely on those donations, pay their bills and stuff. It's always appreciated. You can help us, clean up too, put back your materials, and it's always appreciated. We also occasionally have bigger service things that could come up, like Damien put together the library, which by the way is now functional, and if you want to borrow a book, you can. We also have books as well for donation that are in the front in Spanish, and I think right now it's just in Spanish. And I think, will someone Wednesday, will we be here Wednesday?
He's not here, right? So Jim, you and I.
We'll figure it out. Okay, so there will be sessions here Tuesday, watching Chema on the video. Wednesday, either myself or Carlos will lead a group, and Martina often does it too as well. And next Sunday, I'll be here in English. Saturday, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do it this Saturday. And finally, yeah, some of it, last week, we went out to eat, and I guess because the laws have changed, we were like 9 people, and we had Indian food outside. It was very nice. So I imagine there's some of us, I know I'd like to get some food that are gonna do that, so everybody's welcome. And that, if we do that, again, it was only like €8 maybe or something. It wasn't too expensive. Yeah, it wasn't too expensive. I wish you guys could join us and get this beam you in or something. Anyways, that's it. I think. Thank you all again for coming. Thank you guys for.
Thank you,
being
Jim.
here.
Thanks. See
Oh,
you
there's
next week.
Mark. Part of, she's trying to get on. Oh. Okay, have a good week.